Hey everybody, happy Thursday, and thanks for joining TraderAmogh and myself. A big thank you to TraderAmogh for joining us today. Amogh, let's go over some charts and see what the markets are telling us into Thanksgiving.
Hey Jake, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure with you guys.
Hey, let's first start with SPY. We have been kind of a little range bound for the last week and a half or so, and it's kind of been a weird market to trade, especially with some of those rotating names really starting to move. Some of your COVID stocks that took a big hit, kind of helping honestly the at least the SPY and IWM a little bit. What's your take on the overall markets? Are you thinking this is just kind of a consolidation phase before we really kind of move up, or do you think this is kind of a wait and see what happens with some of these contingent news events like the elections and that type of thing? Obviously, the elections are over, but with all this craziness happening afterwards, there's still some uncertainty out there.
Yeah, this is I still see this as a range bound market, Jake. Before we take off higher,
Hmm.
um, it's been good to see a broad market participation in every other sector, which was beaten down since past few months. We were seeing only the technology names a bit up higher, but since past few weeks we've seen other beaten down names, as you said, go up. So which is a good sign. And with respect to trading, it's equally difficult because we're seeing this rotation happening every day, every other day, and it happens so quickly in all these algo-driven world. So you have to sit through that choppy period and get through that. It's not quite easy as the charts tell, as this SPI chart tells, but yeah, I think we're still range bound, and still need to see that push higher. We
Yeah, I
may
think
get in December.
Yeah, I think a big thing is, everyone's like, oh, well, if the election this, election that, the market is really not a function, I think, at the end of the day about elections or anything like that. It's about there's nowhere else to put your money. And I think a lot of people still have that issue. They think of every single negative thing that's happening in the world and how, it's going to destroy the stock market. But at the end of the day, there's nowhere else to put your money. I mean, these dividend yielding stocks still have a higher rate of return or just overall dividend yield than some of these treasuries. And, it's more of a function of almost having to put your money in the market to get a return rather than what you think about the overall world, the condition of the world right now and where it is. It's more about where do I put my money to get any type of return, because it's definitely not in government bonds right now or CDs like it used to be, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, we're definitely. I think we're seeing that shift towards growth stocks with many investors since past 2 years. They moved away from value and switched to growth, and all their portfolios are now have majority of growth stocks in them. I know I still remember trading all those oil names and large cap names, but I think most of us are moved away from that.
Yeah, and this is something, at least on the daily chart, that's interesting to look at, right? We've got kind of this ascending triangle forming on the daily chart. We had a nice little bounce off of this volume shelf, and for those that are new to the volume shelf, essentially it's just a random name I kind of came up with. It's not something that's new or anything. It's just something that I named it. So with the volume profile, the volume by price, you're always going to have a point of control. The point of control is essentially the longest volume node that sticks out to the left. In this case, I generally am liking to use what I call the shelf, which is an aggregation of multiple volume bars. So it's really more of a zone of volume rather than just one point of control volume node. So the fact that we did bounce off of this kind of right in line with this ascending triangle support, it definitely looks interesting into Friday. And, if we do continue up, it wouldn't be shocking to see a retest of these all-time highs that we saw very, very short lived, last Monday? before just absolutely pulling back pretty hard. But as far as the overall markets go, the daily candle is definitely setting up as an ascending triangle. If we go to the weekly side of things, we are kind of not necessarily in the strongest setup here on the weekly chart. But what I had on previously was I kind of had this ascending this longer term ascending triangle here. And what I did was I essentially kind of connected these bodies here, extended it. We have multiple times where we've tested it out. And so it wouldn't necessarily be shocking either to retest this previous level that was acting as resistance where we were closing on the weekly side of things, not necessarily the intra-week price action, but where we actually closed for the week based on the top of these bodies of the candles. Generally when we break out, we want to see some type of retest of that area that was initially resistance. So, this isn't necessarily unhealthy to pull back a little more in the coming week or two and just retest this area and move up from there. But I think the main thing that everyone's looking at is really just this broadening formation on the monthly. I mean, what do you think about this? I mean, do you think it's kind of just going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy where everybody? I've seen a lot of monthly charts on SPY, and it's funny how they all look like this. Is this a self-fulfilling prophecy, do you think, where everyone's going to see when we finally break through this, it's going to bring in kind of the next round of buyers?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now, Jake, is most of the investment managers are bullish right now, which is usually not a good sign for us to push higher. So as you said, I still like that weekly chart where you showed that we broke out and we're just chopping around there right above that right near all-time highs. So it might pull back a bit, but we should see a new round of buyers show up again when this breaks.
Yeah, and it's always funny because the market is just so big, and it's just so funny how a simple pattern like this can literally create a new round of buyers coming in and just a new round of highs. But that's the market, especially with this market. A lot of systems and a lot of institutional programs are set up to look for these types of patterns, and when they break, that's when the algorithm kind of knows it's time to switch gears and start buying. So from a monthly side of things, we are right at this broadening formation. And like you said, I think once we finally start to break through this area, this is just going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, just like it was a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of breaking down once we tested this in September. So we'll have to see what happens, and let's go from there. Now, let's move on to IWM. IWM has been one of those ones that finally got its act together. We finally filled this gap from what is this? From the gap down on February 24th, and this was one of the last ones to really fill that gap. So it's going to be interesting to see if we continue up from here, or if we go and retest this previous area. Not only was it a gap, but it also, the bottom of this gap did act as an area of resistance for literally over a week. You can see these lines I'm pointing to with multiple times where we filled the gap by a couple bucks. Even, I don't even know if it was a couple bucks. I think it was like 50 or 60 cents, pulled back, and now we're moving up again. So it is interesting to see strength in IWM. Now, as far as your trading goes, what are you thinking about moving forward? Are you going to be focusing on growth? I know you like to look at momentum and growth stocks. Is that something you're kind of keeping your eye on again?
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, I do focus on momentum and growth stocks, and that has worked out for me since past 1.5 years now. So I rarely look at these indices right now, but as Mark Winamini says, it's the market of stocks and not the indices. So it's been a selective market where few stocks move a lot, and few stocks just chop around like this, like Apple, which you're showing.
Yep.
So I've been focusing on selective names right now. And I do like that IWM chart. When you see small caps moving like that, it's usually a good sign for a bull market. And the fact that we have that open gap, upside gap right now, is quite bullish. If we stay over that gap, we should continue higher. And we haven't seen this kind of bullishness on small caps, and this is refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's crazy. Over the last 2 weeks is finally when we broke through these January highs. And if you look at some of these tech stocks, I mean, I think we broke through some of these highs on tech stocks in like July. So it just shows how much IWM is lagging. I mean, we technically are almost still right at these previous all-time highs that we saw in 2018. So we are really far behind on IWM, and it just looks like this is definitely going to possibly take the lead a little bit, especially as vaccine news comes out. It's been interesting to see this really catching a bid with those vaccine news headlines, and let's see what happens now. As far as kind of our FANG stocks, we've got Apple here. We do have kind of consolidation here. Let's anchor a volume by price from the bottom here. And you'll see we have a huge amount of volume just really aggregating at this area. And as you guys that follow TrendSpider on Twitter, this is what we call a volume shelf, and it's just something that can be applied to everything, not just the daily chart that we saw with SPY, but you can apply this to anything. And what I did was I anchored it from this March capitulation point, and we are just seeing a lot of volume forming here. And I think it seems like it's only a matter of time before this volume shelf kind of turns into a launch pad for Apple and some of these other names that initially were big movers, but kind of range bound for the last couple of weeks, or yeah, I'd say several weeks at this point.
Yeah, this is a good indicator, Jake. Yeah. When so much volume shows up and when that stock doesn't go down, it's actually quite bullish, uh, because it means that it can go higher. The fact that it can't go lower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna turn on auto trends and see if I could find anything, but right now it's not finding anything too interesting. Now, one that I actually entered today, just because I've been stalking this thing for so long, is ATVI. ATVI is an interesting one because you would have thought with COVID, everybody staying home and playing video games, that this would have already broken these previous highs we saw in 2018, but this is actually really underperforming. So it's really interesting to see this just absolute massive bull flag forming on ATVI. And it will be interesting to see if we finally catch a little bit of a bid here and start to move to the upside. The one thing that I want to point out here is we do have a lot of overhead volume, a lot of overhead supply. So, as the price is at 75.93, there's a lot of shares holding in the 80, 81 area. So as if we did continue to move up and test that zone, which is kind of right in line with this bull flag resistance above, that's going to be kind of the crucial point to see if this breaks out and kind of makes new highs. But the reason I brought this up isn't necessarily because I bought it as a position trade today. It's more the fact that you would expect these video game companies to have really moved up a little more than they have, at least relatively speaking to previous highs here. Do you watch any of these types of stocks, or is it mainly just kind of the more growth stocks that are really kind of making a dent in the world right now with the new technology and that type of thing?
Yeah, ATVI was not on my radar. As you said, it's been kind of chopping around and not working as well since October. So I did pull up that daily chart and I see ATVI rebounding of 200 SMA, which
Mm-hmm.
is actually a good place to buy if you're looking for a long-term hold. So I do think you have placed your order in the right place.
Well, thank you. It's as far as me as a trader, I literally will watch a stock for months, mainly just to see the price action, learn the personality of the stock. I traded this one back before we moved up, so I traded this in June, and I think I traded it from around 69 up to around 76, and then it just absolutely continued to rip from there all the way up to 87. But it seems to be finally kind of consolidating here, and we'll just have to see what happens. Now, Zoom, I know that you were definitely trading this one over the last couple months, and not sure if you're still interested in it, but this has been an interesting one too, because we are kind of at this area where we are kind of at another volume shelf. So we broke down through this volume gap. Remember the volume gap, for everyone that is not familiar with this term, is just an area where there's not a lot of liquidity here. There's not a lot of participation within this area. And so you can see how easily price is able to move down through this zone. And now we're kind of catching a little bit of a bid here and trying to form a base. Do you think Zoom is one that has had its day and is probably going to chop around, or do you think, over time this one will still kind of continue to move up and be a new way that people communicate?
Yeah, I do think Zoom and the work from home culture is here to stay. If you look at the weekly chart, Jake, it's interesting because it's bouncing right off the 20 EMA, which many people follow.
Let's turn on the 20 EMA real quick. Yep, beautiful. And classic, right? Just breaking down right below it before reversing higher low here on this week's candle, and kind of looks, Peloton's got this look, Zoom has this look. A lot of those leaders kind of have this just very, very sharp bull flag and almost kind of a pennant at this point. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely, this would be a
And
play.
they report sometime next month, I think second week of December. So we might have a pre-ER run-up in Zoom.
On top of that,
this will be on our radar next year as well. So it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say the gap above is pretty interesting too. So I just turned on the gap snake here. And you can see, I mean, that gap is very clear. And you can even see we're almost forming a little bit of a rounded bottom here over the last week or two once that vaccine news came out. So not only do we have this kind of base forming for price, now what I want to do is I want to look at this candle right here. So we have this candle here. This is when I would pull out the raindrops because I want to see what's going on within this candle, right? So we have this wick. It's over 50% of the entire body's range. So if we turn on raindrops, it's going to be interesting to see, not as bullish as you'd want to see. But essentially you can see here that, there's kind of volume aggregated across the entire range of today's candle. Nothing really interesting here on Zoom. But if we go to Twitter, Twitter is a good example of this from yesterday, where essentially you can see we have this wick, but then you can see quite a bit of volume profile within that wick. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind. I'm not sure if you use the anchored VWAP much, but we are still in this anchored VWAP pinch here. And on top of that, we just do have that massive gap above from just an absolute brutal earnings reaction. So, this is one that's definitely forming quite a base. We have that pinch happening. Price is really starting to get tight here. And even the last 2 days, even today's candle, you can see there's quite a bit of volume at the top of the range. And, this is one I definitely have my eye on just to see if we do have some follow through, and this being another interesting case study. Twitter's another one. Twitter's not going anywhere. It's definitely one that is nowhere near as valued as Facebook and all that type of thing. But, I know more people on Twitter than I do on Facebook. I guess Instagram's a little different since Facebook owns Instagram. But with Twitter coming out with the fleets, I don't even know what a fleet means relative to that. But it seems like it's getting some attention. And any thoughts on Twitter and kind of not only the chart, but also the new news event with the fleets and just overall where you see kind of Twitter going from here? Obviously, that's what we're on when we're on FinTwit. So definitely relevant to us right now.
Yeah, as you can see, that gap was huge post earnings, so they didn't take it well. Twitter has been lagging in the ad business since past few months now, so it has not catch. It is yet to pick up and catch up with its peers like Pins or Snap. Uh, so it has a lot of work to do with respect to this chart, and hopefully, maybe next earnings might uh, give some more bull flow to this name. But for now, I'm just avoiding this name.
Yeah, well, now that you said pins, let's take a look at pins and see what's going on here. So pins is an interesting one. Actually, this is a good example here, at least on pins. This is really how I like to use raindrops, right? So let's take off the gap snake. This was a personal price target I had here. But you can see here, we did break out of this previous level that we tested on November 6th. We are not at this previous high that we had around 68. So that would be an area, but still a pretty strong ascending triangle here. And if we turn on the raindrop, it is important to note, at least in today's candle, just not a ton of volume at the top of the range here today. Notice how much volume has been at the top of the range for all of these previous candles on the way up. You see these bulges of volume, but then today's candle, not a ton of volume at the top of the range. That doesn't mean that it can't continue to be bullish here, but it is something to consider, especially after we've had, 7 green days in a row, and then just not a lot of conviction by buyers on today's raindrop. So yeah, pins is definitely leading the pack. I mean, if we go to the weekly chart, we'll see that we're in a pretty strong uptrend. I mean, about as strong as you can get. Kind of looks like the Piton chart, and just pretty much straight up. And it's interesting because my wife uses Pinterest all the time now that we got the new house and we're looking at ideas for the house, and I'm like, wow, I didn't realize Pinterest was that big. But I mean, Pinterest is a pretty cool app and just a website in general, I gotta admit.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody would have expected Pins to do this. By just seeing the app, you won't feel like using it, but the chart is telling you otherwise.
Yeah, hey, it's sometimes best to just follow price action and keep your opinion at home type of deal.
Hmm.
A lot of people are like, oh, this is a horrible company, this is a whatever. But then at the end of the day, whatever price action's telling us is what we have to take.
Yeah,
That's where the smart money's at, is in the stock market, and so wherever prices are kind of pointing to and price action, that's what we have to think about, not necessarily do I use this or do I not? There's a lot of stocks out there. Peloton, great example. I don't own a Peloton, but I know that it's a big thing right now. And, just because I don't own one doesn't mean that it's, kind of the Warren Buffett approach. Buy what you use and what you buy in your personal life. But you can always be bullish on something that you don't own or that you don't partake in, because you do know the market, and you know that just because you don't use it doesn't mean that other people aren't using it.
yeah, totally.
So, well, there's pins. Let's go over a
And
couple more.
I was looking at Snap. Can we pull up Snap?
Oh, absolutely. Ooh, hello. Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is one more name which broke out from its IPO highs last month. Uh, it took out the IPO base, and it's been acting quite well. And I took a position 2 weeks back.
Nice. Yeah, IPO price breaking out is a big thing, and that's another one. That's one that all of my friends and myself included really don't use anymore. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a business case here. And the fact that we're just really flagging just beautifully here.
Hmm.
Just you got your flagpole, you've got your flag here, do another flag here. So I mean, that is a beautiful chart. And yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, Snap is just consolidating and ready for a move. Let's throw on the
Yeah,
volume.
I got in this one before the breakout uh, around 27, and then ran half through earnings, and I added it a few more last 2 weeks back. So I'm quite bullish on this as we head into next month or year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very strong setup. Now let's end this with a little cryptocurrency, shall we? Just Bitcoin in general has just been just an absolutely crazy run the last couple weeks, and in crypto
Yeah,
in general. Do you have any thoughts on crypto or anything like that?
I do think crypto is here to stay. I think it just broke out of 2017 highs yesterday.
We're close to
And
all-time highs. Close to all-time highs.
yeah,
Have broken out of this kind of ascending triangle here. So definitely all-time highs is the next target above, and let's see what happens. I mean, we have had literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row of straight up, but that's kind of Bitcoin's thing. You go straight up, kind of like what we saw in 2017, right? You've got these really strong moves up. This move right here kind of reminds me a lot of this initial move here. You got the same type of thing. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 candles. Slight pullback from 2,900 down to 1,800, and then just straight up. So, is all-time highs going to be an area where price catches a little bit on the sell side simply because people are selling at all-time highs? We'll have to see. But are there any particular stocks you're keeping an eye on that are closely correlated with Bitcoin and crypto in general?
not really, Jake. If you want to be a part of it, I do tell people to just buy Bitcoin instead of buying any ETFs. GBTC is one which I've looked at, and yeah, PayPal is also one good stock to be part of this crypto wave, because they just announced that they support crypto trading in their app. So PayPal is one to look forward to into next year as Bitcoin breaks out into all-time highs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We got to get through this overhead supply on PayPal around, let's say, 195. But if it can get through that, this could be forming quite a base for the price for the next leg up, and we'll just have to see what happens. It's funny. SQ was really the first one that came out with the we're buying $50 million worth of crypto, or maybe it was just straight up Bitcoin. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But, this is what really started the party. And then like 2 weeks later, whatever it was, PayPal came out and said, we're, supporting crypto. So this is definitely an interesting one to keep an eye on, especially with this previous breakout here that we had a couple days ago. And, you know, definitely starting to get people's attention again. And let's see what is so yeah, all-time highs were only a couple days ago or a few days ago. So
Yeah,
if
right when it reported earnings, it hit all-time highs and then pulled back due to the vaccine news. Um, yeah, this is another fintech name, which is a sector to look forward to as we head into 2021. And
yeah,
SQ is just positioned well to push higher.
yeah, this one definitely has quite a bit of volume at the top of the range. This is an interesting one because raindrop, let's pull up the hollow candle, and you can see within that wick today, there is quite a bit of volume within that wick. So, that's
Yeah.
something to keep in mind going into tomorrow. We kind of had a weird day, but all in all, this one definitely on the weekly side of things is definitely showing some promise with trying to engulf last week's body, and let's see if we can actually hit last week's highs or not. But all in all, these are some definitely some different names to keep an eye on. As always, remember, everyone, you have to do your own due diligence. Anything that we talked about on here doesn't mean just go buy it. It means that we're just looking at the charts. We're taking into account some of the different variables, not only just on the charts, but also on the fundamental aspect of things. And definitely, Amogh, thank you so much for your time coming on and talking about this. Looking forward to everybody checking this video out. If you guys have any questions about this video, just comment in the comment section below. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and we'll hopefully do another video like this in the future. But really appreciate you coming on, Amogh, and talking about the markets into Thanksgiving and beyond. And let's see what happens.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. Thank you for having me, and appreciate all that you do for the FinTwit community.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate everything you do as well. And once we have the Trading Pit Season 3, I'm hoping we'll have you on to talk a little more about maybe how some of these stocks have materialized since this video. And it's always fun to go back and look at what's happened, what worked, what didn't work. So maybe we'll even touch on a few of these in our next video and see what happened from here.
Sounds exciting.
Perfect. All righty, everyone. Well, everyone have a great Thursday night. Thanks for checking this out. This is a special episode of Amogh and I looking at some charts. And we'll see you Sunday for the Sunday show. Remember, we do have the 50% off sale still going on over the weekend. But for now, we do have 52% off. And then Friday's 51. And then the next day is just 50 until the end of the month. So if you guys do want to check out some of these things, raindrops, anchored volume by price, some of these other features that make us unique, let us know if you have any questions, and you do have 7 days to try it out for free before you buy. All right, everyone, have a great night. Thank you again, Amogh, for joining us, and we'll see you soon.